A while ago, I was looking at my channel and thought to myself, how useful is this advice? Like, do I actually win games of EDH? Are my decks effective? How good are these strategies that I suggest? So I decided to start keeping track of some stats. And I thought recording 100 games of Commander would be a fun video. So here we are. I have all my stats from 100 games, and I'm going to share those with you. And then I'm hoping we can analyze this data to maybe learn something about EDH as a whole. Before we get into the stats, I want to talk about who is buying your data. Data brokers are companies that scan the web for information like names, addresses, social media profiles, and more. Then they package up those profiles and sell it to companies. This is a crazy marketplace which is going on without most people even knowing about it. This can lead to, at best, more spam, and at worst, higher risk of identity theft. Not only that, but the more that these data brokers sell your data, the less secure it becomes. If they sell your data to 10 different companies and any one of those has a data breach, your information has now been leaked. Your data is really only as strong as the weakest link. As someone who has tried hard to keep my legal name and personal information from leaking, I really appreciate what Incogni provides. Incogni will remove all types of personal information these data brokers have, which can include name, ethnicity, shopping habits, employment history, and more. Incogni has a list of over 230 data brokers they reach out to when taking down your personal data. They reach out to these data brokers on your behalf and request they remove your personal data and handle any of the data broker's objections. They also keep your data off the market by doing repeated removals, making it hard for brokers to keep hold of your data. Incogni has a 30-day money-back guarantee as well if you're not satisfied, so there's no reason not to try it out. If this sounds interesting to you, use my code TrinketMage with the link below to get 60% off an annual plan. Thanks to Incogni for sponsoring the video. First, I want to say this data is biased. There are certain decks I play against more often than the average player because my friends play those decks, or patrons that I've played with play those decks. So I ran into those commanders more often than not. Additionally, I personally play a lot of control-oriented decks. So my games might go a little bit longer because of the types of decks I tend to play. If I played faster aggro or combo, game lengths might be different. Now, I did play some aggro, but really, outside of CDH, I don't run many combo lists, so that is mostly not represented in this data. I also want to talk about where I got this data from, and that would be everywhere, really. Games with friends, although after I moved out of San Diego, I really hadn't gotten too many games with them, so there's like less than 15 games with my friends. But I have spell table games with patrons or randos, complete strangers at game stores, conventions, other content creators, and there's a local CDH tournament thrown in there as well. Basically, any 4-player commander game I played where nobody left early or there were no other weird things added in. So no rule zeroing, silver bordered cards, or stuff like that. Some people might assume that CDH will skew the data, but overall it was only 8 games out of the 100, and the fastest CDH game was turn 5. Turn 1 wins are extremely rare in CDH, and because of that, I didn't have any games with super low turn amounts that would skew the data. In fact, multiple CDH games went past the turn 10 mark. And the fastest game I played was actually a bracket 4 game that ended on turn 4. Speaking of, there are very few bracket 4 games represented. One, because the bracket system did not exist while I was starting this, so I only kept track of brackets later on. And two, there are not that many high-power EDH gamers out there, so I rarely got the opportunity to play bracket 4. Let's get into the decks that I actually did play. Here is a list of all of the commanders I used. That is 26 unique commanders. And yes, I'm counting each unique partner, background, doctor's companion combination as one commander. And of these 26, a lot of them I only played one time. I'm a brewer at heart and like to make new decks, so 10 of these were just one and dones. These are the commanders I played for 5 or more games, and we'll be talking about how well they performed. Here is a pie chart of all the decks I played, and here's a pie chart of all of the decks I played against. As you can see, it's very diverse. I played against 217 unique commanders. And honestly, considering 300 would have been the most, I felt like EDH felt very diverse. The most common commander I saw was Okan Zundersplit, mostly because my friend plays that commander. And second was Brionne Stoutarm, also because a friend of mine plays that. If we ignore decks piloted by my patrons, who I play against often, or decks piloted by my friends, the most popular commanders that I ran into were Henzi and Esika, both at 4 games. Alright, so did I win any of these games? Generally, I talk on this channel about various tips and tricks for deck building or politics and how to improve at the game. And the question is, when I apply this to my games, does that actually cause me to win? Out of my 100 games recorded, I won, drumroll please, a total of 44 games. So 44% win rate. Considering if all things were equal, I should have a 25% win rate. In a 4-player free-for-all game, that means I'm doing something different to significantly increase my win rate. Now, the simple answer might be I'm playing decks that are too strong for most tables. In theory, if you only care about winning, you can easily lie about the power of your deck, and I have incentive to inflate my numbers. I'm making a video about it, am I not? Now, you're gonna just have to believe me that I'm not purposefully trying to trick anyone or lie to people about the power of my decks. I mean, my Architect page is below, and most of these lists are there. You can take a look at them. And I also have some data to back this up. Now, I actually do think that many of my decks are stronger than most lists at the table, but not because I'm lying. Rather, other players are inflating the power of their decks. Many of the decks that I played were scrapped after one game, usually because they won. Those games went something like this. I build a deck with a repeatable removal or card draw engine, and then in that game, I assemble that repeatable removal card draw engine, and then since almost all decks I run into are just creature midrange piles with no removal, they cannot beat repeatable removal or repeatable card draw. And then I completely win very easily. And to be clear, the wins are usually with combat damage or burn. Even pre-bracket system, I wasn't trying to cheese people with fast combos. By virtue of just having a core game plan and executing that, my list is usually much more powerful than other players' decks. And I think this is actually way more clear with the bracket system. I honestly think a lot of the bracket 3 lists I ran into should cut the game changers and drop to bracket 2. Or add removal to their decks. Like, that would really help. I shouldn't be able to set up a 5-card value engine and just have it exist the entire game. To get the full story, we need to look at how the lists I played often performed. My J stack went 6-2. Although that is my CDH list, it's kind of a different story, so we're just gonna put that to the side for now and focus on the other lists. Taurnos, my second most played deck, went 8-5. I think this list did really well because it is actually a graveyard deck. When my yard gets exiled, I lose. And if that doesn't happen, I can usually win. And because people don't play Graveyard Hate very much, this deck felt really powerful. My most played deck, Timna Jeska, went 5-9, which is a losing record, but still above the standard 25% win rate. Now Heliod went 2-9, I'll talk more about that in a moment. Sig River Cutthroat went 1-6, and Mina and Den, my bracket 4 list, went 4-3. Lastly, McCready, Bruce Timna, Thrasios Tormod all went 2-3. My highest win rate deck that I played more than one game of is actually Aragorn the Uniter, but that was only 2-1, so it's not many games. Okay, but what does all of this mean? Why did I keep some of these lists that were clearly bad for so long? Well, it's partly because they were bad. When a deck instantly performs well and executes its game plan perfectly, that kind of bores me. Because I did the thing and the deck worked, probably with no hiccups, and that's kind of it. Compared to lists like these, where I'm testing out other restrictions, it's very different. Heliod is Drago control in mono white. It's a challenge to make work. Sig is trying to win with mostly goaded or stolen things, and play the politics game. Those challenges are enticing. I could remove some of the restrictions and build different or better decks or improve the lists, but I didn't because I wanted to win in the way that I wanted to win. If Heliod easily won games all the time, it wouldn't be a challenge for me to complete. Now, ultimately, I changed those lists for ones that I like a lot more and will probably keep for a little bit longer. I want to use those poor performing lists to point out that individually powerful cards are not nearly as effective as a good game plan, something I've said multiple times on this channel. My Heliod deck is running Humility and is built to take advantage of that card. But even though in theory, this completely halts every deck and stomps the table, how come that didn't convert into any wins? The answer is the game plan. My Heliod deck was too slow to win. Players don't play much removal, but after a couple of turn cycles, someone will have something, and it's just one card. It's not a redundant piece I can replace easily, unlike other value engines, so it just gets removed and players continue on with their life. This list probably would have performed better as a bracket 2 deck without the game changers. The same can be said about cards like Demonic Tutor in Sig. Yes, the card is good, but a tutor is only as strong as the card it searches for, and Sig didn't have any cards in the deck that were too strong for any table, so nothing I searched up won me the game. Basically, if your deck sucks, random strong cards won't save it. Now overall, I feel like my decks performed pretty well and were able to do what I set out to do. In general, my plan of repeatable value engines, repeatable removal engines, sandbagging, and so on and so forth resulted in a lot of wins, regardless of what I was playing, and I played a lot of different decks. In 60 card formats and CDH, going first seems to have a massive advantage, and I want to look at how that played out here in my data. If I count up how many times the player who went first won, I get 27 games, which is very close to 25. So honestly, it appears we don't have a massive correlation between going first and winning. I assume this is because the player who goes first might often get off to a fast start and then loses in a 3v1 beatdown. I also kept track of turns. Here is a graph of how long each game lasted. Like I said, turn 4 in a bracket 4 game was the fastest, and turn 16 in a bracket 2 game was the slowest. On average, a game lasted 10.46 turns. Honestly, I don't have much to say about that. I feel like 10 turns-ish is reasonable on average, because once it gets down to a 1v1, those turns go pretty fast. One final stat I kept track of. I took a note whenever I saw anybody cast Arcane Denial. I saw it cast 3 times in my 100 games, and all 3 times that player who cast Arcane Denial lost. I think I made a comment somewhere that I've never seen anyone win a game with the card before, and I wanted to note that and keep track. And it is indeed true, I have never seen anyone cast Arcane Denial and also win a game of Magic the Gathering. Okay, let's put it all together. What did I learn from this data? Well, my EDH games generally are leading me to winning more than I'm quote-unquote supposed to. They take about 10 turns-ish, and Arcane Denial is unusable. So honestly, I'm pretty happy with where EDH is and where my decks are. I get a lot of comments sometimes when I talk about strategy or weird decks that I build or things that I do, where people say, this will cost you however many games. You'll never win a game with this, blah, blah, blah. And I just think that's not true. Of course, you shouldn't sandbag every single game with every strategy. And of course, you shouldn't cut mana rocks from every single deck ever. But I do think the advice I give out is relatively useful. And I think that my data backs this up. The way I play EDH works relatively well. Of course, that is because everyone's deck is kind of the same. I wish I had kept track of how each game ended, but I really do feel like I didn't see very many combo or burn wins. It was really just creature mid-range. I might want to keep track of more stats later on and see if I can dig a little further into this, but I really felt like everyone's deck was exploitable in the same way, and I think that's very telling. That's basically the secret to all of these wins. They're just repeatable value engines, ways to loop card draw, ways to loop removal so that you constantly are able to draw cards and constantly able to remove things. I mean, it just beats 90% of decks. It's very crazy how so many lists crumble to just getting outvalued. Maybe I'll talk about that in a future video. Anyway, thanks for watching. You should check out some of my other videos so you know about the different strategies and tips and tricks that I employed to win all these Commander games. Or really just watch all my videos, that'd be great. Anyway, special thanks to my tier 3 patrons whose names you see here. If you want to be in the credits or join the Patreon for any of the other perks, click the link below.